now that we have learned about sums, let's also have a look at an alternate way to calculate averages. So if you remember, I'm just going to go up and I'm going to grab my averages, right? And we got our average budget. And you remember I said average doesn't count, doesn't include null values in its formula, right? So let's write a more accurate that includes people who didn't provide budget at all and counts them as 0, if that's something that our query was to be designed to do. So let's do select sum of our account budget, and then we will divide it by the number of records in our query, and we're going to call it as true average budget. And then we're going to grab that from account. I can mix cases. It doesn't have to be all lowercase or all uppercase. It doesn't look that great, but if we look at it compared to the other average, you can see that the numbers are a little different. The true average includes the budgets that weren't provided as zeros, if that's something that we felt like we needed to do, and our average that only includes budgets that were provided is a little bit higher. All right, so how many students identified a school but not a study year? Well, let's start by answering who did not report a study year first. From account, where ac year is null. So again, is null, right? And we're getting how many, so we just do account star, right? We just do this. We got our number of how many. We'll finish the query up in one step at a time. I just wanted to show how the thought process you might go through. So the next step might be, so this should be step 1, step 2. Now let's try it with both criteria. So we've got ac year is null, and then the other criteria was that they identified a school, so it is, and they identified their school by saying ac school is not null. Okay, so is not is the opposite of is. You know, it should be fairly obvious, but we use is not instead of not equal to. Okay, so if we did that, we got a different count. It's 5, right? So obviously we throw in a label here, and we would say num with school but no study year, but no year. How about that? Okay, so we got that. We run that query. We're good to go. All right. Now, you could also use this count column stuff, but it's probably not the best way to go about it. And the reason is because it's not as obvious what it does. And I'll show you what I mean by that. We could do select count how many are X school. And what it'll do is it'll automatically exclude from its count anything that has a null value in school anyway, right? So let's just use the same label. I don't want to have to type it again, so I'm going to copy that down. And then I'm going to go from account, and we can just go where ac year is null. And we don't have to put in that extra bit of where code, and we still end up with the same values, right? But like I said, it's probably better to put it all in your where clause than it is to just assume that it's obvious that that's what's going on in the count, because it's not always obvious, right? Because if we put in count star instead of count column, we would end up with a different value, right? So this is just not as clear. Not as clear.